Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Out to our great friend Lars Larson, LarsLarson.com, The Lars Larson Show, weeknight 6 to 9 here at KIDO Talk Radio. Lars, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. I hope you had a wonderful Father's Day this weekend.
I did, and you?
I did. I had a great one. The weather was fantastic. Family is wonderful, and I just can't say enough good things about getting a chance to recognize dads in our society.
Well, that's so important these days, and yet dads are the unsung heroes, Lars.
That's true. Hey, by the way, I know you're probably following and even talking about this whole issue involving illegal aliens at the border and being separated from family. The point is, if you commit crimes, you shouldn't be engaging your kids in committing those crimes, and you shouldn't be using them as human shields. And that's really what's going on. And now they're doing it aided and abetted by the mainstream media, which seems to say that a policy that was actually adopted by George W. Bush and enforced to some degree by President Obama is now evil because it's being enforced by President Trump, which shows the duplicity of the mainstream media these days.
Indeed, the continuing coverage, this is inhumane, the outburst from the pseudo-reporter at the White House during the Sarah Sanders briefing last week, which was just utterly disrespectful.
Well, it was, and here's the question I've been asking my callers who call up, because I have a lot of naysayers, and I like having naysayers. I think we should hear the arguments from the other side. I say to them, well, what would you like to do with someone who is arrested and detained if that person has children with him or her? And don't even make it an immigration issue. Just say, what do you want to do with a crook in Boise who's arrested? Say the police in Boise raid a drug location, and they find mom and dad and 3 kids. Mom and dad go to jail if they're both involved in the criminal activity. What do you want to do with the kids? Well, I can tell you what they do with the kids. Even though I don't live in Boise, I know that they hand the kids over to a sheriff's deputy immediately, and then the sheriff's deputy takes them to a social service agency, and they are picked up and they are cared for because that's what we do for children. So what happens if you're an illegal alien and you're arrested at the border because you've entered our country illegally and you have children with you? The children are handed off to a social service agency. So we're giving to illegal alien children the very same treatment that we give to American children whose parents are engaged in criminal activities. What's the difference?
And, of course, you're not going to get that from the mainstream media. Another reason to listen to the Lars Larson Show, LarsLarson.com, and on Facebook and everywhere else. Lars, I was catching your coverage of the IG report last week. And for those that missed it, let's hear what you have to say.
Well, listen, this report, more than 500 pages long, really lays out that the FBI, at least at the top levels, I'm not talking about the local special agents who are present in almost every major American community. There's a local FBI agent or office in Boise. Not talking about them. I'm talking about the decision makers at the top, that they were engaged in highly political activity to the point where one agent, Peter Strzok, who was having an illicit affair with a coworker, a lawyer at the FBI named Lisa Page, that he and Lisa Page, even though Strzok was right in the middle of the Hillary Clinton email investigation, were talking about how to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president of the United States. And if somebody's listening to this, they say, well, he didn't really say that. You're just interpreting that. No. One of the texts sent by Lisa Page, to her lover, Peter Strzok, said, well, Trump can't actually become president, right? I mean, she sounded desperate as you can, since text messages don't really communicate emotion. But she said it twice, and he responded by saying, no, we won't allow that. We'll stop it. So he was saying, we're going to stop Donald Trump from becoming president of the United States. Now, how would they do that? Well, among other things, Hillary Clinton committed crimes. And that's now become clearer than ever with the release of this report. And the FBI treated Hillary Clinton under a different standard than they treat anyone else who's suspected of a crime. And what crimes did she commit? I know, again, there's some liberals in your audience, perhaps, Kevin, who say, well, what crime did she commit? Well, she had classified information on an unsecured email server. That's illegal. People do go to prison who do that if they're not named Clinton. And, in fact, there have been some people recently who've been in prison because they took classified information and they treated it in a way that was insecure. The one young man who's in the Navy, who's just been pardoned by President Trump because he took a couple of pictures of the area of the workstation where he works, the control panel he works at, and he wanted to show his friends, this is the cool place I work. Well, understandable motivation, but what he did was wrong, and he got convicted of a crime. He has been properly pardoned by the president because he didn't intend to do anything wrong, but he did break the law. Hillary Clinton did something that is worse. She put classified information on an unsecured email server. And what did last week's IG report say explicitly? That her email server was hacked by what they call foreign actors. So if you're an actor, it doesn't mean like in Hollywood. It means you're a foreign entity. It could be an individual, could be a foreign company, it could be a foreign government. It could be North Korea or Russia or China or all of them. And that they hacked into her email server and they got a hold of classified information. So she broke the law. Then she was allowed to destroy government documents. That is, again, a violation of the law. Should the FBI have gone after her for that? Well, they didn't. They for the longest time, they actually wrote the conclusion of the report that she was not going to be prosecuted prior to interviewing her. And she was the prime suspect in this case. So you have a situation where our government, our FBI, decided to not only excuse the crimes of Hillary Clinton, but also to provide the genesis for the investigation of Donald Trump. And both of those things were going on, and they were being driven by people within the FBI like Peter Strzok, like Andrew McCabe. And let me tell you something else that came out, because I didn't get the whole report read on Friday. I've been reading it over the weekend. One of the things that Peter Strzok did, or that other people within the FBI did, you'll remember Andrew McCabe, who was the deputy director of the FBI, so he's the number 2 man in charge. And Peter Strzok worked a couple of levels down from him. So there is some insulation from the top to the bottom. So imagine this. If you called the Boise police chief today, Kevin, and said, I understand one of your drug agents, drug officers in the Boise Police Department is doing an investigation. Do you know all the details of that? The chief would likely say, well, no, I don't know all the details. I don't need to know all the details unless an issue arises. So that information is somewhat compartmentalized. Now, the chief could ask down through the chain of command, what exactly is Officer Miller doing in this drug investigation? And unless it was going to compromise the investigation, the chief might be told. McCabe wanted to know what was going on inside the Hillary Clinton email investigation, but he couldn't afford to ask overtly. Why? Because he was already under suspicion. This is Andrew McCabe, because his wife ran for office, and some top Democrat donors, including Terry McAuliffe, gave his wife $700,000 in campaign money. Now, she lost the election, but that's not the point. The point is, big-time Democrats were doing big-time favors for Andrew McCabe's wife. Now, that stinks, just the same as it would stink, and I don't want to cast aspersions, but if the Boise police chief's wife was getting big favors from people in the community, and you said, but does that mean the chief will go easy on those people that are doing favors for his wife? Yeah, probably so. So what McCabe did was he arranged a back channel, backdoor way of getting information. He assigned Lisa Page, the lawyer within the FBI, who was Peter Strzok's lover, to be his special assistant. So he knew that she was getting the inside dope on what was going on in the investigation from her lover, and he was getting the information from her and bypassing all these other channels. That's one of the reasons that McCabe, some of your listeners may remember, got fired, and he got fired famously a day and a half before he would have qualified for retirement. And there were a lot of people outraged. Oh, how dare you fire a guy right before he's about to qualify for his pension? This guy was a dirty dog, and he was doing dirty stuff within the FBI. So the Inspector General's report shows huge amounts of bias. And I'll tell you, the current head of the FBI, Christopher Wray, I'd fault him because while he had to take Comey's place after President Trump fired Comey, rightfully so, because Comey was just as dirty as the rest of them, he puts Chris Wray in, and Wray comes out last week after the Inspector General's report comes out and says, oh, gee, the report shows no signs of political bias. Baloney. You had people within the FBI who were both crafting an investigation so that it wouldn't indict Hillary Clinton and so that they would find things that they could go after President Trump with. And, of course, some of what they found by wiretapping Carter Page, one of the Trump campaign people, by using this phony baloney Steele dossier that the DNC paid for. They managed to generate the seeds of the current investigation by Robert Mueller, which has now been, the total FBI investigation has been going on for more than 2 years. The Mueller investigation has been going on for more than 1 year, and they haven't found any indication that Donald Trump had any kind of had any kind of arrangement with the Russians to bend the outcome of the election. But they wanted to be able to do that because, and let me tell you this, Kevin, when people are about to have their whole life and career torn apart, even if it's for something they did, they can become desperate and take desperate measures. That's what was going on inside the FBI, because all the shenanigans that they pulled to benefit Hillary Clinton, to hurt anybody who was running against her, they knew all that would come out. If it wouldn't come out if Hillary had been elected, it is coming out because Trump was elected. And all these people knew that they were going to end up, they had blood on their hands from this. So they said, we've got to do something about this, because if we don't fight back, we're all going to get implicated in this. And the implications may go a whole lot higher, because what they called the mid-year investigation, that's the one that was going on during the summer of 2016, leading up to the 16 election in November. That mid-year election, how high up was it approved? Well, we know it went to Andrew McCabe. So that means if Comey didn't know about it, then he's either incompetent or a fool. And Comey worked directly for Loretta Lynch, one of the most political attorneys general in history, and she worked directly for the president. So did President Obama know that his FBI was using dirty tricks to try to sabotage another campaign? And I would argue that he probably did.
Our great friend Lars Larson, LarsLarson.com. You can catch him tonight, 6 to 9, weeknight 6 to 9 on KIDO Talk Radio, 580 AM, 107.5 FM. Two thoughts, Lars. We'll go to LarsLarson.com. Lars, thoughts. Does the FBI need to be scrapped entirely? And the idea that Hillary Clinton had this in the bag, and if she had won, and you've talked about this on your show several times, none of this ever would have been known.
No, it would have all been held from public view. It would have been buried. And I think that's what they were counting on. I mean, this is one of those situations, Kevin, where if you have a felonious nature and you are inclined to commit crimes, most of us don't, just because we don't think it's right to commit crimes. But, that theoretical question of, if you saw a stack of $100 bills and you realized you could put them in your pocket and walk away and nobody would ever know about it, would you do it? They were in the position of thinking, no one will ever find out what we're doing to benefit Hillary Clinton, because there's no way that Donald Trump can get elected. And the evidence that they believed that began to be afraid of the alternative, that is Donald Trump getting elected, was in Lisa Page sending these panicked text messages to Peter Strzok saying, he can't really become president, Kenny. Well, you can understand their fear, because if Trump became president, as he did, then all of their shenanigans within the FBI could be found out, and people's careers would end. So that's what was going on, and I think Americans, as to your question of busting up the agency, I suggested myself on Friday, you may have to scrap the whole agency. Does that mean that you would have an America without something like the FBI? No, but you would have to recreate the agency from scratch, probably using some of the same agents. But when an agency is as flawed and corrupt as this one appears to be, is it enough to chop off the top 4, 5, 6, 7 layers of upper management and replace them with people you can trust, and perhaps with procedures that make it harder to do this? The closest I can come, Kevin, is about 30 years ago when I was a brand new reporter in Portland, and I was a street reporter. They had a huge scandal involving DVD, the Drugs and Vice Division. And they discovered that the Bureau had a tendency to assign somebody to DVD and leave them there for 4, 5, 6 years. And some of them became corrupt. Some did not, but some did. So one of the remakes was to rename the agency, put in brand new management, and say no police officer can be assigned to this for more than 2 years at a time. Because it's only when you put people in there for long periods of time that some of them realize, I can get away with things, and I can hide it because I'm going to be here indefinitely. When they changed that and they said you can only be in that particular assignment for 2 years, and then you go out and a brand new officer comes in from the other detective ranks in the agency, that was one way to change it. Maybe that's what the FBI needs, is new procedures in place that make it very difficult for somebody to use the FBI as a weapon of political mass destruction.
You know, Lars, as someone who, like you, supports law enforcement, I was shocked to learn that some of these folks in the FBI, that's the highest level of law enforcement. We're talking ethics and integrity. Those aren't words. Those are actions with those folks. I was shocked to learn that they were getting gifts from journalists. And
yeah,
you've been doing this. I've never said to an FBI person, hey, here's a couple tickets to the Boise State game or law enforcement. It's odd.
I've never done that either. And my rule, there was a really tough rule that the Associated Press used to have that said a reporter could take a cup of coffee, could not take a meal, could not take anything else worth more than the cost of a cup of coffee. I'm not sure I'd go that far, because I've shared meals with police officers and I've bought meals for police officers. I've never had a police officer buy me a meal, but that's okay because I'm thanking them. I don't wear a bulletproof vest to work, so I don't need them buying me meals. Then my wife and I used to occasionally go into a place on a regular basis. We knew the waitress well, and we'd give her a $20 bill back when that was still some money, and we'd say the next couple of officers who'd come in, because we'd noticed they'd come in during their break in their shift to eat a meal, we'd say just pay for the meal or pay for whatever the $20 will pay for, and we'd do that about once a week. And so it was our way of thanking these officers, and we didn't care if the officers knew or not. We just wanted the officer to know there are people within the community who highly value what they do. But the idea that the FBI was getting gifts from people and that journalistic organizations were engaging in bribes, the rule I have followed in my business for 43 years is you never pay for information. And I know that some members of the public might find that strange. If somebody calls you, Lars, and has the biggest story of the week or biggest story of the month or biggest story of the year, you're not willing to pay for it? And the answer is no, because the minute you start paying for information, some of the information will be tainted by that. There will be both the appearance of impropriety, but there's also this. If I told you, Kevin, if I give you $10, will you tell me a good story about something you saw happen? And you say, sure. Then the next question is, how good a story can I get for $50? And the
right.
well, no, and that's
right.
what happens
Right.
is when the person who's selling the story realizes, well, the story of what I actually saw might be worth $20, but if I tell them a really good story, it could be worth $1,000. That's the flaw with paying for information, which is why in most journalistic organizations it is absolutely against the rules to pay for information, because what you tend to get is you get a really sexy story. The problem is the sexy story is probably not true. Whereas when somebody is simply telling you the story because they think the story deserves to be heard. And Kevin, I get people like this all the time who say, you're not going to believe what I found out. This is going on, and I just want people to know it's going on. Their sense of satisfaction is only in, I think people should know. And I'll bet everybody listening to this can think of something they've seen or heard about where they thought, boy, people ought to know that's what's going on.
Lars Larson, he's going on tonight at 6 at KIDO Talk Radio, larslarson.com. Lars, we so appreciate it. We love that you always set the standard for us here in the morning.
Kevin, it's a pleasure to talk to you, and it's always a pleasure to get calls and emails from your listeners.
Have a great day, sir.
Take care, buddy.
Our great friend, Lars Larson. Coming up next, Liberty Linda, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Don't forget, coming up, God and Country, the 52nd Annual God and Country Festival, 4 o'clock on Tuesday, a week from Tuesday, at the amphitheater at the Idaho Center. We look forward to seeing you there. Fireworks, incredible music, a wonderful speaker, all free. And you can hear the fireworks right here on your official station for God and Country, KIDO Talk Radio, 580 AM, 107.5 FM. Very proud to be a part of God and Country. Much more details, Treasure Valley God and Country.com, also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and just 52 years of service to the Treasure Valley. Liberty Linda, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. You know, this is so ludicrous about what's going on at our southern border. You know, why don't we start doing our immigration only through Ellis Island again?
Well, we'd have to ship them to Ellis Island, or I don't know how they'd get there on the boats.
No immigration on the southern border whatsoever. We just completely close it.
Shut it down.
I have a really good idea. How about we build a wall on our southern border? Have we ever talked about that before?
That's a good idea. I'm glad you came up with it.
Yeah. Well, someone had to come up with it. No immigration whatsoever except for a certain location, perhaps our northern border. In Southern California, we used to have a big ship that was 5 miles off the border, and then we take a boat out there to go fishing. How about if we get immigration away from our borders? No one can come into our country only through that one location. See what I'm trying to say?
Well, you'd be vilified for that.
Well, it's our country. We can do whatever we want.
Oh, no, you have to let people come in, live for free, take your items and everything else. That's what the president continues to be up against.
Well, I know, but we got to stop this. We have to. My people came in through either Montreal, Canada, or they came over on the Mayflower. How about if we have one ship they could come over on from anywhere?
All right.
You get the point I'm trying to make. We need to control this completely. This country does.
Well, we're going to control you.
I don't think you can do that. No, but, this is serious. And, whether the children with the parents, what's going on down there is just completely so unbelievable. We need to control this, not others. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make.
I think you did. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Kevin, for all that you do.
Liberty and Linda, God bless. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug. Taking your calls on the border policy. Joe and Meridian, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Not bad for a Monday, and you, sir?
God keeps blessing me every day, Kevin. Just try to learn to enjoy it more.
I'm with you, brother.
Hey, I was thinking about the rule of law and the terms grace and also mercy and how those apply. And grace is getting something that we don't deserve, and mercy is not getting what we do deserve, right? And so if you don't have consistency in how you apply the law and people don't get held accountable, then they don't understand what grace and mercy is either, because they think they're owed a way out, right? And so I think it's interesting. I mean, President Trump, on the one hand, has pardoned a few people. I think one of the ladies was a single mom who, dealt drugs and was, been in prison for a long time, and he showed her some mercy by not having to serve out her sentence. And I think with immigration, and some of these other laws, our society's forgotten what grace and mercy are in some ways, because if you don't uphold the law, you can't apply those things. And those are supposed to be applied for people that actually want to change, right? So it's not just carte blanche because we feel sorry for them, or, they're not, we don't think that they're sharp enough to make a decision all the time. It's really, hey, we feel like this person really wants to change or has changed, and we're going to apply grace or mercy. And I just thought I'd check and see what your thoughts were on that, because I was thinking about that. I heard a sermon on that over the weekend, and I thought, man, that's an interesting concept that sometimes it feels like our society's really forgotten about.
Grace and mercy have been replaced by entitlement.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, again, humility, empathy, trying to get those thoughts back. And, it's so easy to say, so hard to practice. And I think as we get older, hopefully we mature a little bit more and go, boy, I wish I would have done things, Joe, a little differently. And I realized that in my own life, when you're making it about someone else other than yourself. I couldn't go to Mexico and demand citizenship, or Canada. There are requirements. Why would we have our great country not be up to those standards that these other countries have? And What scares me is the self-loathing that is perpetrated by the media in America. This isn't America. This isn't this. Well, we've had a tough history in the past, but we've had to enforce laws, create laws to protect ourselves. 8 years of President Obama, and really before that, but 8 years of Obama really accelerated the lawlessness, the moral relativism, and the self-loathing of our country.
Exactly, and I think, you're not helping people when they feel entitled, because entitled people typically don't feel like they should give back, right? They feel like they were owed. And so I just feel like, we want to create a society and motivation for people who feel like they've been given grace or mercy, and so they want to then, dish that out going forward and be somebody that follows in those steps, not, and I want to train everybody that they're owed. And I think that's an unfortunate development in our country, and I really would like to see us go back to the former of grace and mercy and really just, holding people accountable, but also operating in a position where we're looking for those people that, do want to make a change and trying to give them a hand up, right?
As opposed to a handout. Joe, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to KIDO Talk Radio. As we talked about, it was the return of Steve Bannon over the weekend. John Decker and I had a chance to talk a little bit about this, but I would have loved to see Bannon go up against George Stephanopoulos. This was on the program this week, which you can catch on Channel 6 locally, and it's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. He was off. He's off more than he's on. But Jonathan Karl going back and forth with Steve Bannon. And if you wonder why Bannon was so effective at helping the president, just listen to this clip here at KIDO Talk Radio.
Let's get to the IG report on the FBI's actions during the 2016 election. This had, of course, that very damning exchange, the text exchange between Peter Strzok, FBI agent, and former FBI lawyer Lisa Page. She says, Trump's not ever going to become president, right? And he responds, no, he's not. We'll stop it. Absolutely damning. But we also heard from FBI Director Chris Wray, who said this about the report.
This report did not find any evidence of political bias or improper considerations actually impacting the investigation under review.
He also said that the bias was limited in scope. Is he right?
Jonathan, let's talk about that. Let's talk about we'll stop it, okay? Mm-hmm. We have an issue. This is all tied to Korea and the Southern Wall. We have an elite in this country. That's not the most damning thing. And remember, Stork and these guys are not FBI agents. They're the equivalent, he and McCabe, they're equivalent of 3- and 4-star generals. This is the leadership of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But right, hang on. If you go and look at what they said about the American people, this is not animus. Their hatred of the American people and the Trump supporter and President Trump himself is shocking, and that has not been played up enough. They call the Trump voters lazy, poor, these middle-class, lazy, uneducated people can't get jobs, and pieces of excrement. Okay? You can't even say what they really said on Sunday morning television. They called Trump a piece of excrement. Their hatred of Trump, they weaponized the FBI against Donald Trump. This report is shocking on so many levels. And remember, an IG report, he says bias. Unless an inspector general, actually a guy tells him, yeah, I did it biasly, he's going to actually say that. The inspector general's report is just the beginning. It's a small slither. Remember, he didn't go to the intelligence agencies. He didn't go to state. He didn't go to the White House. And let's talk about this comment. We'll stop it. Okay? Devin Nunes comes out, the Intelligence Committee, all that was supposed to be sent to the Intelligence Committee. He did not see that quote until noon on Thursday when it was in the report. More importantly, on page 404 of this report, there's a footnote. That was deleted. That in the footnote, they only found that in May. That exchange was found in May when they went back and took the thing and then went back. Stork, who's a 3-star general equivalent, and Page deleted this. You know why? They knew it was a smoking gun. Here's very simple. Very simple. The Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, good friend of mine, on Monday, he's got to put a special prosecutor on this, okay?
And if he doesn't?
And he ought to put he has to put a special prosecutor, and that special prosecutor ought to call for a grand jury. And panel a grand jury and go with it. By the way, if he does not, I think the President of the United States, under Title II, ought to order the Attorney General of the United States as Chief Law Enforcement Officer.
Or fire him if he doesn't?
As Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States, he ought to tell the Attorney General, you're going to put. By the way, this is not a cover-up. This is to unearth a cover-up. This is to get sunshine and accountability in this process. This IG report is just the beginning. So
there we have it from Steve Bannon from this week, which you can catch on Channel 6. Bannon was in rare form, and he spelled it out. You know, we weren't supposed to win. We weren't supposed to have this type of accountability. We weren't supposed to have this type of president that is getting more Americans back to work than the previous 3 or 4 put together. It was supposed to be the continuation of the Obama coup over America. Kevin Miller, that's a little extreme. Kevin Miller, what's in your coffee this morning? Kevin Miller, did you have a bad weekend? No, I had a very restful weekend. But the mainstream media, and the reason why we fight every day to give you the voice as a Republican, as a conservative, as the only Republican conservative person of faith that proudly says that on the radio in the Treasure Valley. Everybody else, well, I'm a this or that. No, I'm a conservative. I'm a Republican. I'm a Christian. I believe, and I try and live my life according to those principles. That's why we have our association with Fox News. That's why we love our contributors. We love the big guests. We love hearing from you. And sometimes we take things for granted. This was supposed to be the coup that was supposed to take down America one more time. Look at what Obama did 8 years ago to America. Look at where we are trying to recover after 8 years of leading from behind, after kissing the derrieres of the terrorists. You know, it's funny how Trump has destroyed Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and Obama was a perpetual victim. How leaders are coming to see President Trump, and how the mainstream press wants to tear down this brave individual that is sticking up for us. And as Bannon said, this was all a coup. They were going to continue on the deep state, and it's like Star Wars. They continue to go after this, and this. Right? And if you want your America back, we got to hold people accountable. And sometimes it gets uncomfortable. Like we said, whether it's talking about whether or not you agree with the city of Boise endorsing the Pride Fest, the Gay Fest, people need to have voices. Dissent is being squashed. You know, there are other easier things for all of us to do. You know, we could shuffle off to Buffalo. We could go play the Backstreet Boys. Hey. But we choose to stand for what is right and to make the tough choices, like the president. And I believe that in my heart. And I believe that there are people trying to eliminate this program as they have done in the past. So we need you to spread the word, to engage, to entertain, to let people know you listen to Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Be proud of it. We're proud to have you. But look at what Bannon said. The whole thing is corrupt. Again, they want to selectively use. What are the stories that we're hearing about? Oh, the babies being separated from the families, pulling on the heartstrings. Sure. On the other hand, let's talk about the people that have used those babies to come into this country to commit crimes, use these babies for sex trafficking, use these kids for other notorious things that we can't even mention on morning radio, on radio in general. Those things happen. What is it? You have the Idaho Coalition Against Sex Trafficking or kid trafficking. That's going on here in the Gem State, folks. And where do those folks come from? They come from south of the border. You have people that are slaves in this state. Literal slaves. And it's not being covered. But Donald Trump, trying to have restrictions at the border, trying to have some type of sense of law, sanity, borders, and boundaries. Well, Donald Trump's a bad guy. He just doesn't get it. Really? Really? Tell that to the construction worker that's lost their job because they were undercut. Tell that to everyone else when we're looking to restore America. Donald Trump is doing the right thing per his constituency that elected him. Can you imagine if Hillary Clinton were running things? This is something to be thankful for and to be grateful for. Coming up next, what you won't hear about a recent shooting. And it's good news. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
It was anything but a quiet, calm Father's Day in the city of Tumwater, Washington, just south of Olympia and about 30 miles southwest of Tacoma. It all started late Sunday afternoon with reports of a drunk driver, and then they started receiving reports of shots fired and a carjacking. When cops got there, a 16-year-old girl was hurt, but not seriously. A short time later, police say the male suspect headed to a nearby Walmart and started opening fire there. Thankfully, no one there was hit, but police say the suspect then left Walmart and tried to carjack 2 more cars before an armed man shot and killed him. No word yet on the motive. In Los Angeles, Adam Housley, Fox News.
Julie in Boise with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning, Kevin. Hey, I'm wondering, is the border doing any DNA tests on these children and their parents?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, because I question whether they're really a family. If they find that these children do not have these parents, these are not true parents, then these children belong somewhere else. And they need to be sent on a plane back to their country of origin to reunite with their family. The other thing is, where are they coming from? Mexico, there's Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, Belize, Colombia. They have to go past all these countries to get here. Are they coming here for entitlements, for true amnesty, or are they running away from something? If they want to come to the United States for all the standards we stand for, maybe we need to find, maybe there's another country out there they can go to that's a lot closer. I don't know, something's really fishy about the whole thing. I know in 1980, MS-13 got their start from immigrants from El Salvador. You know?
Well, you've asked a lot of interesting questions. We'll see what people have to say, but you're right. You know, instead of having the bleeding hearts, let's find out who's coming into America and what they have.
Yeah, let's do a little homework. If we're going to know what we're dealing with, are they running to us for entitlement, or are they running away from their point of origin? If there's a country of origin they don't like, is there another similar country closest to their point of origin where they can stay or go to the embassy and we can try to do some discovery there?
Unfortunately, I think those countries have tougher immigration policies than we do, Julie.
Well, trying to strengthen our immigration law because there's things that affect us. We have our children to take care of that we've invested in. We don't want diseases coming in for lack of vaccines that we've had to take. And I mentioned crime and MS-13, not to mention possible human trafficking and a burden to the infrastructure.
Julie, great. Yeah, Julie, great points. Thank you for listening.
You're welcome. Bye.
And Kevin Miller in the morning here. Back to this story, though, in Washington, where you have people being victimized, you have a carjacker running amok, shooting people, and you have a citizen coming up and taking the shot and doing the right thing. You know, if we want to truly solve the problem of gun violence and gun control, we can be victims. We can hold up signs and say, oh, it's a gun-free zone. Oh, it's a gun-free zone. Oh, it's a gun-free zone. And unfortunately, that doesn't stop the deranged, the mentally ill, the killers who have an issue. Just like in the Old West, just in the colonial days, what did we do when we had a problem? We had to solve it ourselves. It would be nice if the state could come in and save us day in and day out, but that's not going to happen. And we live in such a blessed time where everything is comfortable, that being uncomfortable is just kind of weird these days. We can't handle it because we live such a pampered existence. We remember that pampered existence was because of people that toiled, that people who fought, that people that sacrificed, people died for this country. Now, it's very easy for the politically correct Politburo to vilify American history. We love American history. We honor America. And we are proud to be the keepers of the flame, right? Let's remember that day in and day out. Thankfully, we appreciate you listening. Ray Amaya, outstanding job as always. Great way to kick off the week. To all of you, we so appreciate you listening. Thank you for sharing the morning with us. May God bless you. Keep the faith.